Deep within the South Pacific, where azure waters mirrored the heavens and emerald isles whispered secrets long forgotten, lay Skull Island. Seasoned sailors and explorers spoke of it with a mix of fear and fascination. It was a place where myth bled into reality, where echoes of prehistoric beasts lingered among the foliage and cliffs. The island was a tapestry of contradictions, a place of breathtaking beauty and primal terror. Legends spoke of colossal creatures that roamed its depths, creatures that had vanished from the earth eons ago. Among these whispers, one name resonated with particular dread: Dryopithecus, the oak ape, a prehistoric primate thought to have walked the earth millions of years ago. Long dismissed as a relic of a bygone era, the Dryopithecus had become the stuff of legends, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires by those who dared to dream of the island's mysteries. Dr. Amelia Croft, a renowned primatologist, had dedicated her life to unraveling the secrets of the primate world. Driven by a belief that Skull Island held more than mere myth, she assembled a team of leading scientists. There was Dr. Mark Jenkins, a rugged biologist, Dr. Lanon Guyan, a brilliant geneticist, and Jake Riley, a seasoned tracker. Together they embarked on a perilous expedition to Skull Island. Their vessel, the Aurora, cut through the waves with quiet determination. As they drew closer to the island, an almost palpable silence descended upon the crew. The air grew heavy with the scent of salt and something ancient, something primal. Little did they know that their expedition into the unknown was about to bring them face to face with a truth far more terrifying than any myth. The Aurora dropped anchor a safe distance from the island's edge. The team, clad in khaki and armed with scientific equipment, boarded a smaller inflatable raft. Nervous anticipation hung thick in the humid air. Dr. Croft's voice cut through the tension. "We are here as observers, researchers. Our objective is to document, to understand." Her words did little to soothe the unease that had taken root in their hearts. As they neared the shore, the dense jungle canopy seemed to reach out like grasping claws. The air grew heavy, thick with the cloying sweetness of unknown blossoms and the musk of something distinctly untamed. A strange stillness pervaded the air, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the screech of unseen birds. Stepping onto the beach, the team found themselves on a shore of volcanic sand, black as night and surprisingly soft beneath their feet. Towering trees, their trunks thick and gnarled, formed a dense wall of green, effectively cutting off any view beyond the beachhead. The silence, so profound just moments ago, was now filled with a symphony of buzzing insects and the eerie cries of exotic birds. Dr. Jenkins broke the silence first. "Let's set up base camp. We need to be fully operational before nightfall." His words were met with nods of agreement. There was a shared understanding amongst the team. Darkness held a different kind of danger in a place like this. The jungle seemed to swallow the sunlight, casting long, eerie shadows as the hours crept toward twilight. The team worked with a feverish intensity, driven by a primal urge to create order amidst the encroaching chaos of the wild. Tents were erected, equipment meticulously unpacked and checked, and a perimeter established marked by flickering torches. Dr. Nguyen, her brow furrowed in concentration as she calibrated a portable DNA sequencer, muttered, "The air, it's electric. Something's not right." Jake, his senses honed from years of tracking, cast her a sideways glance. "We're not alone. I can feel it." The first haunting howls pierced the twilight, echoing through the dense foliage, sending shivers down their spines. They were close, too close for comfort. The howls, primal and filled with a chilling intelligence, sent a wave of unease through the camp. Even Dr. Croft felt a knot of fear tighten in her chest. These were not the sounds of mere animals. Everyone, Dr. Croft's voice, though laced with apprehension, projected calm authority. "Stay close to the camp and keep the torches lit. We need to maintain a visible presence." Her words offered little comfort as the jungle around them pulsed with unseen menace. The hunt, it seemed, had already begun. The night was a living, breathing entity, filled with rustling leaves and snapping twigs. The scientists, huddled within the flickering circle of their torchlight, their faces pale and drawn. Each rustle sent their hearts racing. "Did you hear that?" Dr. Nguyen whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Jake, gripping his machete, shook his head. "Something's out there." Dr. Croft forced herself to focus. "Stay vigilant. Keep your weapons close." The scientists could only wait for dawn, their nerves stretched taut. Dawn broke over Skull Island like a hesitant prayer, painting the sky with hues of rose and gold that did little to dispel the palpable sense of dread. The jungle, still shrouded in mist, seemed to hold its breath. The scientists, haggard from a sleepless night, emerged from their tents like ghosts. "We need to establish a perimeter," Dr. Croft said, her voice raspy but firm. Her words were met with weary nods of agreement. Armed with machetes and tranquilizer guns, the scientists cautiously ventured into the green abyss. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of decaying vegetation. Every rustle of leaves sent their hearts racing, their eyes darting nervously. The first sign of their quarry came not in the form of a roar or a howl, but in the subtle snapping of branches and the heavy thud of footsteps. The scientists froze, their breath catching in their throats. A massive shape moved through the trees, its outline blurred but unmistakable. It was a primate, but unlike any they had ever seen before. A Dryopithecus, thought to have vanished millions of years ago. It stood at least 10 feet tall, covered in thick, dark fur. Its face was a grotesque parody of a human face. Its eyes glittered with a cold, malevolent intelligence. The scientists watched in stunned silence. The silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream. Dr. Nguyen, her eyes wide with terror, stumbled back. A massive Dryopithecus emerged from the undergrowth. It moved with terrifying speed. Reaching for Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Croft fired a tranquilizer dart into its chest. The dart found its mark. but the effect was minimal. The Dryopithecus roared in pain and anger. The jungle erupted in chaos. The scientists scattered, their screams lost in the din. The jungle floor became a nightmarish tableau of survival. The scientists, their initial shock giving way to raw terror, scattered through the undergrowth, their screams swallowed by the dense foliage. The Dryopithecus, their massive forms moving with a speed that belied their size, stalked their prey, their guttural roars echoing through the trees like macabre hunting calls. Dr. Croft, her heart pounding in her chest, scrambled through the undergrowth, her clothes torn, her face streaked with sweat and dirt. She could hear the heavy thud of footsteps behind her, the snapping of branches, the guttural breaths of the Dryopithecus closing in. Fear, primal and consuming, lent speed to her flight, but it was a race she knew she couldn't win. She risked a glance over her shoulder and saw the grotesque visage of their pursuer, its eyes burning with a chilling intelligence, its jaws open in a silent snarl that revealed rows of razor-sharp teeth. It was gaining on her, its massive arms reaching out, its claws scraping against the bark of the trees, eager to tear into her flesh. Dr. Croft stumbled, her ankle twisting beneath her, sending a jolt of pain shooting up her leg. She cried out, the sound lost in the cacophony of the jungle, and fell to the ground, her back slamming against the rough bark of a tree. She looked up, her breath catching in her throat, as the Dryopithecus loomed over her, its shadow engulfing her like a shroud. The creature paused, its hot, fetid breath washing over her face, its eyes black and fathomless, studying her with a chilling intensity. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the Dryopithecus shifted its attention. A high-pitched shriek pierced the air before turning and lumbering away, disappearing into the dense undergrowth. Dr. Croft lay there for a moment, her chest heaving. She had been given a reprieve, but for how long? Dr. Croft limped through the undergrowth, her senses on high alert. Her every instinct screamed at her to run, but fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She had to find the others, to warn them. They were her responsibility. The jungle was a symphony of unsettling sounds. The rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs, the distant cries of unseen creatures. But beneath it all, she could hear the echoes of the struggle, the guttural roars of the Dryopithecus, the terrified screams of her colleagues. The sounds were fainter now, but they were enough to guide her. She stumbled upon a clearing. Her heart sank at the sight that greeted her. Dr. Nguyen lay on the ground, her body twisted at an unnatural angle. Her eyes stared vacantly up the canopy. Her clothes were torn, her flesh marred with deep scratches. A pool of blood stained the earth beneath her. Dr. Croft knelt beside her, reaching out to check for a pulse, but she already knew it was futile. Dr. Nguyen was gone. Rage welled up inside Dr. Croft, eclipsing her fear. These creatures had taken something precious from her, and she would make them pay. She would use every ounce of her knowledge, every bit of her cunning, to escape this island and expose its deadly secret to the world. The Dryopithecus may have won this battle, but she would win the war. The jungle held its breath, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood and the lingering echoes of violence. Dr. Croft, her heart a leaden weight, forced herself to look away from Dr. Nguyen's lifeless body. Survival for herself and her team was paramount. The jungle had become a labyrinth of shadows and unseen dangers. The Dryopithecus were hunting, their roars echoing through the trees. Clutching the machete, Dr. Croft moved through the undergrowth, senses on high alert. She would survive. She would escape this island. The team, faces etched with fear and exhaustion, regrouped at their makeshift camp. The flimsy tents offered no sanctuary against the horrors lurking beyond the flickering torches. "We can't stay here," Jake said urgently. "They know we're here." The jungle, once a source of wonder, was now a prison. "We need to signal for help," Dr. Jenkins said. Their radio was destroyed, and the dense canopy blocked any distress signal. "We need to improvise," Dr. Croft said firmly. "We can use the wreckage to build a beacon, a signal fire." The remaining hours of daylight were a blur of frantic activity. Driven by a shared desperation, they scavenged what they could from the wreckage of their camp, their hands working with a speed born of fear and adrenaline. The metallic tang of blood hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the perimeter of their makeshift defenses. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of blood orange and violet, a beautiful yet terrifying backdrop to their desperate struggle for survival. As darkness descended, casting long, menacing shadows across the jungle floor, their beacon fire roared to life, a defiant column of flame and smoke against the encroaching night. They huddled around the fire, its warmth offering little comfort against the chilling fear that gripped their hearts. The jungle was alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs, the guttural calls of unseen creatures. But beneath it all, they could hear the echoes of their pursuers, the Dryopithecus, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground, their guttural roars drawing closer. The hunt was far from over. Dawn broke over Skull Island, painting the sky with hues of pale gray and mournful purple. The jungle, usually a cacophony of sound, was eerily still. The tents lay ripped and shredded, their contents scattered across the blood-stained earth. The fate of Dr. Croft and her team remained a mystery, their stories swallowed by the green abyss. The island stood as a silent monument to the hubris of mankind.